Oh, we live because you got a notification already. Look. All right, we live.
Are we? It didn't even show up on mine.
We are. You got an echo? Look.
There we go. So now we should have no echo this time, right? I'm learning, y'all. I'm learning.
Yeah, no echo. Look, we took care of that quick this time. Okay. So welcome everybody to the live. I know I said we were going to do this yesterday for those that are watching, that I said we would do it yesterday after I did my live, but you know, we moms and stuff get in the way. So it got really late and we thought we would be doing a disservice really late on a Friday to be doing this because we didn't think you guys, you know, you might be busy on a Friday, 10 o'clock at night. So we decided to wait until, you know, this early afternoon to do part 2. So we want to thank y'all for tuning in. And we're going to be talking today. We're going to continue the topic about homeschooling and answering any questions that you guys have. We're going to talk about what a homeschool co-op is today. You know, Jice founded the one that our children go to on Fridays. We were there yesterday. And just talk about kind of how she started that in the community. Of course, it was other women working with her. What that is all about and how it benefits homeschooling. And then we're going to talk about different styles of schooling. So that we don't think that the colonized way that we are taught in public schools is the only way that your children learn or that they can be taught. Everything down to the time frame. We always bring our kids home and we're like, oh, they got to go to school Monday through Friday. So you wake your kids up, right? Did you do that, Jice? You wake your kids up at 8 like they going to school and then they sit at the table and do all these different subjects for 5 hours. Like, we don't do that anymore. And guess what? It works much better when we don't do it that way. Jice, go ahead and holler at the people once again. If they don't know who you are, let them know who you are and what you do and where they can.
So thank you for coming on over here. So I'm Jice Johnson, and I'm the founder and the CEO of the Black Business Initiative, where we are out here really helping Black businesses get started, grow, and scale. And my favorite topics are money and mindset in the Black community. And so that's really what I'm all about. So I appreciate everybody coming over here. Look, I see a few of y'all asking me to be modded up. Let me tell you, I don't know if it's just my phone situation don't work, but my phone will not let me mod you up. I do not know why. So I went in after the last one and I modded up a couple folks who had asked. If you ask this time around, I will mod you up for the next go round because we're going to be talking again tomorrow. So on a whole nother topic, that's going to be good. So y'all make sure to be tuned in for that. So I don't know what the issue is with my phone. I have not figured that part out. And if I go onto YouTube from the computer, it's going to have a horrible echo. So we just gonna roll with what we got right now. But I see you on here. And I'm ready to talk about this. Like, I'm very excited because we're in year 3 of this co-op and it's been a journey and there's still ways to go. But I think it's definitely, you know, necessary for us to talk about this in the community. There were a lot of questions and good conversation that came out the last one. So I'm ready.
Well, this is my first year at the Homeschool Co-op. So this is, you know, I'm going into 3 years of homeschooling myself, but this is my first year at the co-op and it has made a big difference. So let's just start there. And shout out to all the people in the chat. Please do me a favor, like, so we can get other folks to come in. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe to the channel and share the video on platforms, on your YouTube and wherever else you share stuff. So go ahead and do that. But also shout out to all the people. If you guys are homeschooling, right, or you're seriously considering doing it, like, give us a shout out. Do you homeschool? Let us know. Maybe you can get in on this conversation because there's a lot of things and facets to this. And you know, it's not that one way is right or wrong. It's what works for you in your household to get your kids learning, right, and your schedule and things like that. So shout out to all the homeschoolers. If you're in the house, say what's up. Right. So Jice, let's go ahead and get into the conversation then, right? What is a homeschool co-op?
So first of all, let me just tell y'all that I don't profess myself to be an expert, right? And I say that because there are some women in our community that are like truly experts. And so the first thing that I realized that I did is if you actually look up what a cooperative is by the actual definition, we don't have that. So when we created this co-op, we created it as a community collaboration between all of us as families that wanted to come together. And we called that a cooperative. And so, Yeah, so let me kind of backtrack a little bit as to how this got started. I think I spoke last time just saying that I was sick of the school system and decided that I was going to homeschool my daughter. This was a big thing for me because everybody in my family are teachers. My mother, my sister, my brothers, my brother-in-law, we got a lot of teachers. And I was like, oh, I can't teach no kids. This is not going to ever work. You know, I would never. So I was one of them moms, I would never homeschool my kid. But then at some point you get around to really looking at what the situation is and wanting to do something that is better for your children. And that was kind of the place that I got to, was what is happening isn't working. I don't like it and I need to do something different. So I didn't want to go this alone. So I literally posted on Facebook, I said, hey, who's interested in starting a homeschool co-op here in Denver? And I was amazed at the response. I mean, a lot of people hit me back. In particular, I got a shout out to Sean Howard and also Joyelle Bateman. But initially, Sean Howard hits me up and she says, listen, we're moving from Oakland. We're coming back to Denver. So Sean was from here. She had moved to Oakland. Oakland is my hometown. So I was like, hey, girl, you know, so they're coming back and we say, well, let's have this conversation. We hosted a meeting, a first initial meeting, and we had like 20 families that showed up and showed out saying, I've either been homeschooling and trying to figure this thing out on my own, or I'm interested in homeschooling, or you know, I know that there are some other options and I just don't know where to start. So we were very brand new into the situation. We had no idea what to expect. We definitely didn't even expect that many people to show up. But what that did tell me was that there's a need out there and that people were hungry for this. So Sean and I continued. And after that conversation, Joyelle joined in and the three of us continued to host meetings. So I want to say we hosted about 5 meetings before we really sat down and took the feedback that we got from all of those meetings. We took feedback about what people were looking for, what people felt like were missing, and we collaborated to put together this curriculum. And so, I'm sorry, let me back that up. Not a curriculum, but we put together a program. So our first pilot year, we piloted with just the 3 of our families. And what we did was we came together, we rotated who was teaching, we played around with how we do different themes, we played around with what was important for our co-op and what was important for our families based on the feedback that we had received from everyone in the community. Some of those things included cultural enrichment was like the biggest thing. People are not as concerned about the academics as they are saying that our children are not represented, our children don't feel empowered.
Let me say that too, as far as the co-op. So people don't think like we take our kids to this school and, like you said, not a curriculum, but a program, because we talked on part 1. If you guys didn't see that, it's on the page, check it out, that we talked about all the places you can find curriculums for your children to give them. When we get together at our co-op, we do focus on the things she's talking about. We focus on the things that school doesn't focus on, and maybe at home, whether it's the socialization, whether it's going on field trips with other kids, but the parents are all a part of that. So we stay in the classroom. We all participate with our children, and you don't drop your kids off and leave. It ain't that kind of school, right? Right. So we get in there and learn those different things about cultural enrichment and how to socialize right and have relationships right, and all of the different things that should be being taught in the community, and pride and being, Black children and what that means in real history. And so those are the things that we focus on when we go there. We're not doing curriculum work. That is something they're going to be tested on in the school. But go ahead, Jice.
Right. No, and that was really important because so curriculum is something that comes up a lot when people talk about homeschool. And that was an area that we did not want to touch, especially not initially. We were not looking to set a curriculum for everyone. All of our children are different ages, and we have this wide span, right? But what we did begin to look at is how children interact together and work together, and the learning process there. What does it mean for you to give older children leadership responsibilities and leadership roles and have them help with younger children? What does it mean for younger children to learn from and work with the older children? And they tend to be a lot more responsive at times than they do with the moms or with teachers and things like that. So, beginning to look at a more holistic approach. And then over time, a lot of our paradigms have really shifted. So initially we started off our co-op kind of doing school at home. And so if you listen to part 1, we kind of talked about this. we kind of came in and said, well, there were certain aspects that we thought were really important. So things like we sing the Black National Anthem. We do not pledge allegiance to none of that bullshit, right? Like we are about our community and our people and instilling some of those values. So another part of that is really talking through certain value systems. So we have themes each month, in particular, themes that cover values. And then we point out ways in our daily lives that we can either display those values, and we make sure to highlight when we see our children displaying those values in reality, right? So I think all schools talk about values, but they don't all highlight what it looks like to really walk in that on a day-to-day basis. So those are some of the things that we have pulled in. But we started kind of by sitting down at a desk with, some worksheets and, some lessons on the board, right?
Because that's what we think we got to do, right? It's evolved over time.
Right. And it has. It is really just taken a life of its own. Like at this point, we barely use tables. Like tables are for arts and crafts, or tables are to put our projects on. And so we got into this whole space over time. So like year 2 was another level of development. So where we started off year 2, kind of in that same gist of let's sit down, let's go through this lesson. By the end of year 2, we were removing the tables out of the room. Like we need to be interactive, right? And so one of the things about homeschool is learning your child's learning style. That is probably the biggest thing that you could do, is to understand how your child learns. Go ahead.
Before you go, because you mentioned something that was a learning style that was kind of passing and talking. I want to say, as far as like in the homeschool co-op, how you spoke about the older children working with the younger children versus the parents, because we find that in learning, something that doesn't happen in the school system as much, but you find that children can teach other children things much faster. I remember when my son was about 7, and I was in the pool all day for like 2 hours. Like, let me teach you how to swim. Float on your back. Just trust me. I ain't gonna let you go. And he's like, no, mama, no. In 2 hours, I'm like, you know what? Just don't learn how to swim. I'm done. I had to get out. Another kid comes out. He's a little older, maybe about 10 years old, but he's a lot more like his size. And he's like, look, you're a big person. Look, I see how you can get in this water, but I ain't like you. Took about 10 minutes, and that child had my son attempting to do things with him that he wouldn't do with me, because he could relate to that child and say, well, if you can do it, then I can do it, but you're a grown-up, right? And so I find that in a learning style sometimes, and I use that at home, that I have my other children help my children with things that they have, and they tend to, they're able to grasp it better. But it also teaches them how to work together with one another. You don't really find that happening in the public school, much, to where kids are helping other kids and they allow them to do that and learn in the way that they're teaching them. In that way, that youth will grasp it. So that's a learning style as well, that, you said in passing, but, it's a lot that older children, even younger children, can teach one another in a lot of things that they're learning.
Absolutely. So when I think about the learning styles, here's the things that come across. In school, in traditional school, if you are a linguistic learner, so you learn by listening, writing, reading, if those are your primary methods of learning, you will find that you probably do really well in school, and so do your kids, if that's where your kids' learning styles are. There are a lot of children who are visual. There are a lot of children who are more auditory, and there are a lot of children, a whole lot of children, who are kinesthetic. So there's that hands-on portion. That is, I have to touch it. I have to feel it. I have to manipulate it. I've got to build it. We could talk about windmills, but let's build a windmill. That shit don't even have to work, right? But it's a process of me understanding, like, I remember now that I've built the tower and I've built the wings, and now we could talk about different types of energy. I don't want to just talk about the planets. Like, I want to mess with the telescope, right? And I want to play with the different planets, and I want to feel what type of rocks I think are on the planets. And let's talk about the different textures. And, this is a windy planet. Well, what does the wind feel like? Let's go outside and experience what that might be like at 100 miles an hour. So like, there are the vast majority of our children learn in that kinesthetic way, but that is not what's taught in school. And so what happens is that we try to fit them in this box that they don't fit well in. And then we tear down their self-esteem because we tell them you don't learn well. And we tear down their self-esteem because we tell them that you can't focus, when it's really not that they can't focus. They can't focus on you lecturing them.
Right. See, somebody said that too. Earlier, Joy said, I want to homeschool my 8-year-old son. His teacher says the same thing about him. He's so smart, but he won't focus. He's disrupting the class. He's bored. And see, this is the thing is that no, the kids don't want to sit in a seat, right, and have somebody lecture them all day. I will tell you that it's the learning style. That's that repetitious sit here and see, this is the thing of difference of what you're saying, Jice, and what happens in the public schools is they say, we're going to cram something in your brain until you get it. And sometimes it ain't even until you get it. You ain't got it. They're going to pass your ass on anyway. And then everything else for you to learn is hard because you didn't grasp the foundation. We talked about that last time. But they just want you to memorize stuff and spit it back out to them. So if you teach a child about, momentum and movement, and we're talking about science and how the wind works and how the wind blows, they can memorize all of those words and give them back to you. But if you take a child outside to the park and you give them a kite on a windy day, they will grasp the concept so much better because they have seen it in action. And that's how they're able to take these things that they have learned and actually use them in their life on all facets. When it comes up, they say, hey, well, I learned something that can help me with that. And school doesn't do that enough. They teach you how to get a job. Job wants you to what? This is what you do at your job. They tell you this is what your job is, and you do everything in the order we told you. So it's a matter of memorizing and regurgitating back to me what I've crammed into your brain, but not necessarily doing hands-on where you have learned to use the knowledge that you have been given. And I will tell you, like I say on my show all the time, all knowledge not used is useless knowledge. So you have a bunch of people with degrees and diplomas walking around here. They stupid as hell. So I hope y'all know what I'm saying. So, that's the thing I love about the homeschool learning is that we're hands-on. When we do a math lesson around here with my children, one of the math lessons they've all had to have is going to the grocery store. We have a budget. We have to buy certain things that matter. And you are the one that is responsible for this calculator and adding this stuff up. If it's something we don't need, or we go over, you better subtract something. Do you need these fruit snacks more than you need this bread? So we do that. And they learn how to work on a budget. They have learned how to use their calculator. They have learned how to put things back and learn necessities and responsibilities. And you know what? That taught them something that they can use in life while they are still learning math. Math that's actually relevant to them. Because I don't know about many of y'all. I'm not an engineer. I didn't go to be a scientist, but I still don't know what A plus B equal. I don't know why the hell you can't just tell me what the A and the B is and I can give you the answer. But I've never used that in my life. So it's real life application that I think children or any person, you learn better that way when you can grasp the concept and not just regurgitate what you've been told.
Absolutely. And so there's another question I'm gonna come back to, but let me just kind of finish out kind of where we are now and how we've gotten there. So so it has been an evolution process. And so at this point, we have really kind of pulled away from the schooling and we have more of a free learning environment or an unschooled environment. And so inside of our co-op, I would say it's more of a free learning environment because we do have direction that we're taking the class or the lesson for that week. But the children are able to get up and kind of lead and move around, right? So we come in with a general direction, but the children have a lot to say in how that direction plays out. Because sometimes there have been instances where we might come in with a thought and then a question comes up that takes the conversation in a whole new direction. And so we have that flexibility to kind of move around a little bit in what it is that we're learning about. And then in addition to that, we do things like field trips, hands-on, not just necessarily art, but hands-on projects coupled with field trips. So all of that kind of falling under a theme. And so that's a lot of where we are now. And then were you going to say something, Michelle?
Oh, I was going to say with
I'm my bad. Girl, I'll call you Michelle. Meche.
Telling my government now. Y'all been following me long enough. Y'all better know what my real name is. But about the free learning, I just want to, because there are people in here saying, they have online courses or whatever, and they need to mix things up. But the free learning, just because we're talking about learning styles so that they understand it to the fullest, with the free learning styles, we'll come in the classroom and we will give them something they have to do as a group, or we'll even let them decide. Do you think you work better alone, or do you want to work in a group? And some of our students will find, well, working alone wasn't really the thing because they got the damn thing done and I needed some help over here, right? So they're learning those life lessons. Sometimes you need help. Sometimes you think you do things better alone. The funny thing is we will give them a task, and we do this on purpose, a task that can be accomplished in more than one way. And we do not tell them how to accomplish it. See, in school, they'll tell you that. This is how you do it. We don't tell them how to accomplish it. We allow them to learn through trial and error. And when they're done, we discuss, well, what did you do that you thought really worked well? Well, what did you do that maybe you could have done different? They offer advice to each other, what they have learned. So the children kind of gear a lot of the learning in the classroom in the way that they present it. So I just wanted to break down that free learning style a little bit more, that we do give them some direction, but then we allow them to take the direction and use their mind in the way that they work to complete the task.
Right. So the other part about our co-op, because there have been questions before about like how you do this cooperative thing. So Michelle mentioned just this before, parents are not leaving. Okay. So we're all involved somehow. Now we do play to where our strengths are. So right now in our co-op, we have a couple of parents who are on our curriculum committee. And so as a part of that, they are building out the direction of the lessons and things of that sort. And then other parents come in and help facilitate that. We also have our preschool. So our youngest is 1 and goes all the way up to about 4 years old. I think our 5-year-olds have tipped over into the big classes, but we have from 5 to 14, 15. How old is Rob? Your son might be the oldest one, or it might be
Nope, Shadanya, she's 15.
Shadanya is the oldest one. She's 15, right? So we have from 5 to 15 in our co-op, and that is about I think we have 16 kids in that class. 16 scholars, as we like to call our babies. So but again, with that range, so we give our older children some leadership opportunities, and our younger children are looking to follow after these older children. And that also gives them the responsibility of how do they behave, and asking them constantly about modeling. Are you modeling the behavior that you think that 5-year-old or that 7-year-old should be, modeling, right? And causing them to think about their actions within the confines of a community setting. You're in a community. You can't just think about yourself. You have to think about yourself to a certain extent, and then you have to think about the larger group. And so we're constantly pushing them to think about the examples that they're setting for our littles.
I want to give them an example. We taking our time this Saturday, if y'all don't mind. I want to give an example. I thought this was the cutest thing in class one day. One of the young men was being teased because he thought one of the young ladies was pretty. And I have to say this too. I love our kids. If you go look at a picture of our co-op, boy, they all got dreads, they got fros, they just black to the power of the fullness. I love it, right? But they were teasing him. And so we took that as a moment to teach, right? And so then we started talking about, well, what's wrong with liking someone? Why are you teasing him because he thinks, well, he likes her? Well, what is that okay? Is that not okay? What's wrong with liking people? And then when you like people, because she got upset because she felt that people were teasing her and it was infringing on her, emotions and her space. So then we talked about that, right? But we didn't. The children did. And it was like that version. You remember the Lauryn Hill song at the beginning, and they're in the classroom and you hear the teenagers and they're talking about, what is love and what's relationships. And they're talking about, well, what can you find? What is attractive about people? And the kids were saying, he was saying, well, I think her hair is pretty. Well, I think sometimes the way somebody dances can be cute. Well, I like the way they told that joke. They laugh a lot. So then they're starting to realize what it is you like about people. Mm-hmm. Then we dispelled that myth of, well, they say that if a boy hits you, he'd like you. And so then the girls, we asked them, well, do you like being hit? They said no. And we asked the boys, well, if you like her, do you want to do something she don't like? And they're like, no. So that doesn't really make sense, does it? And then we talked about, well, why would you hit somebody instead of saying something? Do you know these smart kids was like, well, maybe you just don't know what to say. And that's why you do that, because you want their attention. Our children are intelligent if you allow them to use their minds. And I thought it was the best conversation I'd ever seen. So they learned from that moment. It's okay to have crushes on people. We have to respect each other's personal space. So we talked about what's okay. And it's okay if somebody doesn't like you back. What does that mean? Does it mean something is wrong with you? And so we covered that whole topic. Now, the last time some kids was in school and you're teasing somebody for liking somebody, you think the teacher took the time to do that? And so they learned a sociable skill of how to interact with one another and how you should treat people if you like them, the things that you can be attracted to about one another. And it was so cute because we're talking to children. So of course you don't hear all of this raunchy stuff that adults want to say, but they're attracted to the people. It was just the pureness of what you see in somebody that makes them beautiful. And I thought it was a great conversation. And see, these are the things that happen in a homeschooling co-op that kids can have these conversations, and we kind of let them lead it. And I was surprised at a whole lot of their answers. It was one of the best moments I remember from last semester. So I wanted to throw that example out of how these children are allowed to think and run with that, and how it allows them to learn so much more. So that's a big purpose of the homeschool co-op, because, you know, maybe that's not a conversation that could have been had if you're just at home with your children, but they're learning socializing skills. And so I thought that was a great moment. I just wanted to share.
No, absolutely. And that really goes to the point of, you know, having that free learning style, because the conversation wasn't initially about that, right? But that gave way to a very in-depth conversation that also opens up the, you know, further conversations for healthy relationships. And so someone asked in here earlier around, socialization, right? So that is always a question with regards to homeschool. And so we touched on this last time, and I want to take a moment to like really touch on it again. The school system does not socialize our children in a healthy way, period. It really doesn't. And let me break that down in a couple of ways. First of all, you have grown ass adults who are in the workplace who don't know how to socialize properly. That's why everybody be talking about everybody else. You got workplace drama. People don't get along. They don't know how to collaborate. People be ready to quit their job. They be stressed out. I mean, at the end of the day, adults don't know how to properly be socialized. And what we have come to the idea of around socialization is that if you are around a lot of people, in particular, or a lot of people that are your age, you then have learned to properly socialize, and that's bullshit.
Right.
So
socialized in the wrong way, in the colonized mindset, right? All this bullying, kids killing themselves, damn that kind of socialization.
And I'm gonna give you this example without getting into too much detail around, you know, people who are in our co-op, but this is a real situation. So we have two moms that are in our co-op, and they had a falling out situation that we are still in the process of trying to mend and reconcile that fallout. The reason for that, and this is what I've pushed both of them to consider, is what are we trying to teach our children, right? Mm-hmm. And one of the moms, she said, well, I'm not comfortable in confrontational situations. And my response is, sis, we're going to be in confrontational situations. That is a part of life.
How do you handle them?
Is that as adults, we don't know how to come out of those confrontational situations in a healthy way where the relationship can be reconciled. And so although we are all, like, I recognize, and I say this all the time, there are so many issues within our community. My number one thing for our community is that we have to have grace for our people, right? So I'm not upset that they're struggling with this. My hope is to continue to facilitate the conversation to help heal in that situation and help heal in that manner, because it's very important for us to be able to recognize that as adults, there are things that we struggle with, but we want our children to do better. So how do we teach our children how to properly reconcile when they've had a disagreement or when they've had a falling out? How do we teach them to, one, advocate for yourself? Advocacy for yourself is incredibly important. But also being able to see the other perspective is also important. Being able to compromise is important. Being able to collaborate is important. And being able to come back from an uncomfortable situation and come back into harmony is important. None of that is being taught inside of the school district. So what happens is that although we're walking through this situation and we're walking through this as humans who also have to recognize that we have had these horrible mental conditionings, that we want something better for our children. And so I applaud both of these women for even coming to the table to have the uncomfortable situation, to have that uncomfortable conversation, because they recognize that we have to grow in this area. But this gives us a learning point to then also come back and teach to our children how they overcome something. We can't teach something we don't know. Ask yourself how many adults bounce back from real uncomfortable situations or confrontational situations or fallouts. Most of us have passive aggressiveness or really aggressive stances, and we'd be like, fuck that bitch, or we ignore
I'm guilty, but I apologize. I'll be like, fuck that bitch. I'll be like, all right, I'm sorry, damn.
Right. You know, but those are real things, right? And as we talk about what it looks like to build a stronger, healthier community, those are like the things that we have to walk through as adults, but we are now putting ourselves in the space to walk through them with love and grace.
Because public school doesn't do that. A lot of children are dealing with bullying. See, we have to understand what they're socializing our children into. Socialization works in a lot of ways, you know. And so my children, they sit at home. That was probably the hardest thing in the beginning. So like you said with the co-op, when we started homeschooling, I'm sure like anybody who takes this venture, you're going to take time to tweak it, and what it looks like in the first week, it's not going to look like in the 6th week. And it's definitely not going to look the same in the 3rd or 4th year, right? It changes and it evolves over time. And so that's something we had to address so that they could deal with social issues and be with other children and peers their age. And so we did the homeschool co-op, but they also play sports. There are things that, and see, this is the thing too. I have found my children more involved in activities in the community now that they're not in the school system, because those same things, whether they want to play sports, whether your child wants to, actually, then they can go do anything. School only offers certain things, right? So I have a child who plays soccer, but then I have a child who wants to do dance. Another one is boxing. School don't offer you boxing, you know? So they go out and they do these things, and they're in programs where other children, and they meet those children. They're not forced to sit in a classroom day after day with somebody who don't like them. When the children are bullied, what do? Just like in jail, they suspend everybody, right? Now they're writing tickets for children. I haven't spoken on it yet, but you know, there was a young boy that was in school not too long ago, and he wouldn't stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. And not to get into all of it, but he got into a confrontation with his teacher because she told him that he should just leave then if he didn't like the country he was in, because she came from Cuba. And when she was ready, she would go back if that's how she felt. And he said, but I didn't come over here on my own. Y'all brought us. So when the boy started giving the slack back, then they said he was talking back. Then he ends up in the office, and now he has a ticket, because your children get tickets from the criminal justice system from that damn officer in the school, and your children end up in the courtroom for something that was merely just a telephone call home before, when we were in school. So they're socializing your children to put them in a place that they don't need to be. They're not really teaching them social skills, because if they did, they would deal with conflict resolution. They wouldn't suspend kids or send them to court because they're fighting. They would say, what's the problem? They would deal with bullying, and we wouldn't have so many children. And don't get it twisted. It's not just these white children. There are Black children at alarming rates that are committing suicide over being bullied in school. So, I mean, yeah, you can socialize your kids into a whole lot of stuff. I mean, there are kids who can be in a household with a pedophile and be socialized into, this is what you do in relationships. So all socialization is not great. And I would tell you that the public school does not socialize our children specifically in a way that I would want my child to be socialized. I'm gonna throw it back to you, Jice, but I want to first say, Leslie Green said, do you think it's a good idea for me to begin a homeschool co-op, although I don't have any young children anymore? My babies are in college. I want to say to you, sis, yes. You do not have to have children to do this. I think that it is something that is needed in our communities. And let me tell you something, just because you don't have children doesn't mean anything. If you know it's something that's needed in your community, it may just take you to step up to the plate and say, look, are there any parents who want to do this? And I would like to support y'all in getting it done. All it takes is for one person to step up. There may be people who don't even in your community who don't understand the homeschool co-op, don't have the information. And if you bring it to them, like Jice said, she just put out online, look, are there any other homeschooling parents? I want to come together and do something in the community with our children. And that's how it all got started. So no, I would say you don't have to have children to do so. I mean, you had children, you know, they're in college, but what a great thing to do if it's something that you want to do for children. In the public school system, all those teachers don't have children. And I remember some of my favorite teachers growing up were Black teachers. They were women, but you know what? They cared about us. I remember when I was coming up and I had Black teachers, they were there because they wanted a child to learn, and they would take time with you, and, you know, and they did all of those things, and they were more like parenting you, because there are some teachers, not this day and age, that actually go into teaching because they just want to teach. And if your thing is, I want to bring education to the community because I care about our community, and this is a way that I feel I can help, then I think you should definitely step up to the plate and do so, sis.
Absolutely. And some of the things that we've looked at, so, you know, as I said, we're in our 3rd year. We're really 2 years out of our pilot. Our pilot was very small. We've tripled in size. Not that we're huge, but we definitely have a decent group of kids. We have about 21 children right now. And one of the things that we have, or some of the things that we begin to look at now as well, are parental supports. So what does it look like to have support for some of the things that us as parents need? And then also we've looked at how we bring in, you know, other community members. So we have other people in the community that come in and help teach our children, right? And so there are other places and things that we are definitely getting into because we're still very early, but there are also a plethora of resources that are out there. And there are some amazing women, and I'll be looking to drop some of those links in the description after this. So be sure, like when you come back, look inside of the description because there'll be quite a few links in there. But there are some women doing some amazing things all across the country. And there is a much bigger network than I think a lot of us realize. So, I'm someone who's still at the very, very grassroots level, but there are quite a few folks. I know there's a group in Houston that I follow as well, that it looks like they have a pretty good group of kids. So, look at where you are and reach out and see what's already happening in your area as well. Because one of the things that I love is when we can collaborate instead of necessarily creating duplicity. And I think there's times, there are some areas, like we're over here in little ass Denver, okay? There's not a big population of us over here in Denver. But you can go to some other places. You get to Philly, you get to DC, you get to Atlanta, you get to Detroit, where there's a much larger population. And I'm sure that you're going to find people who are already working on things, and then look to see where you can support and collaborate on the things that they're doing versus starting all over and creating brand new, because we tend to do that a lot. Like we act like this is our first idea, we have this light bulb moment, like somebody else, especially if you're in a densely populated Black area, somebody else has the idea.
That's the whole idea behind the Black agenda, though, that we are our answer. And most of what we need is already in our community. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. If we just look, there may be a homeschool co-op. And then guess what? Instead of having 5 of them in your city, y'all should just come together and be one big ass co-op, right? If that's what works. But maybe you're in different sides of town, but still staying collaborated and coming together. There's never a bad thing about that. And sometimes you don't have to start from scratch, and you don't have to put all this energy into it and spin your wheels. If there are people that are already doing these things, sometimes they could just use the extra help. So I would say look first and see what's in your community. If there's not, then hey, I would say definitely start one. Let me say this about starting one. Can I throw this out there, Jice? Now we have a building. We do pay rent. Our kids come together, right? And we do those things. We do throw events, and we have budgets, and we have boards that we're setting up. So if somebody was to say, how is it that we, participate in these funds? Let's talk about that as far as, fees for the homeschool co-op, or where we find the money to do these things. Because I'm sure that would be a question someone would have in starting one.
We're predominantly self-funded. We have looked at a few grants. We actually were afforded a grant before in our second year. We were afforded a grant that has definitely helped us move some things forward, but we're predominantly self-funded. And so we looked at some other models that were out there and began to craft and formulate how we were going to do our fees. So we have an annual registration. It is not very much. And you can actually go onto our site. So if you want to go on, if one of the moderators can drop in, KulanVillage.com. So KULAN, KulanVillage.com. You can see our fees and everything. We're very reasonable, but at the same time, there are things that cost. So we have a website that's up, so we have to have that maintained. We do have field trips. We get a lot of our field trips for free, but in case we don't, there's that. We do get our supplies and things of that sort. So we don't have our parents coming out of pocket for those things. And as a part of that, let me say as much as possible. So we kind of have a little asterisk in there, like this is what it costs, but just in case we do something extra, just know there may be a few extra costs associated. But so far, we haven't actually had that happen. So we have that in there just in case we know we need to dip in a little bit more, or we have something that's a little bit more expensive that we want to do. But because of the size of our group, because of what we do, and then because of the funds that we have been collecting, we're able to run ourselves. Everything from the parent perspective is run as a cooperative situation. So that's why I said, if you actually look up the term cooperative and then you look at what we're doing, it doesn't fit in that exact term. But what we're doing is nobody's getting paid, even for us that are putting together all of the stuff each week. Nobody's getting paid. This is all an act of love in what we're doing for our community, but the funds are there from each family.
And if somebody doesn't have the funds, we don't turn people away. But like she said, if you ask not, you have not. So there are a lot of times, because we are a homeschool co-op, a lot of we go on a field trip once a month. Museums, we've gone to Black museums. We've had historical houses that stand from all the Black cowboys here. So we take them to learn their history. Sometimes we just go do fun stuff with them, but we're always taking them to do something. A lot of the times the places we take them are actually actually Black owned places or run by Black people. So they're glad to let us come in. So they don't always charge us. So when you're doing something in the community like that, a lot of times people will afford you stuff because they can later just write it off and say they donated it. So don't be afraid to ask for the babies.
And we get a lot of things like we just had you know how they do like the sip classes. So obviously we wasn't sipping on nothing, but we had a young sister come in. She does painting. So she did like group painting. We've had African drumming come in. We've had African dance come in. We've had yoga instructors come in. We have had, it'll come back to me. We did like fundamentals training. So like dribbling basketballs and different types of techniques like that, you know, eye-hand coordination, like that stuff that gets the kids moving, especially like some kids are athletic automatically, some are not, but no one is saying, oh my God, you're not talented. It's like, you know, let's work on how you can connect this hand to that ball and learn how to dribble.
We also had someone come in and speak to our children about the importance of a village and ancestors and how you have babies and why are babies important. And the kids were really smart about it. They was like, well, babies grow up to be, you know, adults one day, right? They keep the population in the village going, right? So you have these babies and then the youth are strong, right? And then you have the parents that get to a certain age, but grandparents play a role. Elders are very important. And then after that, what comes? You kids think it's over. No, you have ancestors and, you know, and when they leave, you still honor their memory. And so we're teaching our children all of these things. So they get to partake. And all the people who come and sit in the classroom with these kids, they do it because they want to. It's not like, oh, well, I need some money. Because if they say that, they probably ain't coming. We just gonna
right. And there's something that you said that was important. We don't turn away people for money. We don't want that to be an issue. But we also, this again comes back into values, right? We also want to say like we're self-funded. So we don't take a lot of money, but it does take money for us to run, you know, everything. We're very transparent and open about what we have. We're very transparent and open about what the costs are so that nobody feels like anybody's being taken advantage of or any of those things. But we, you know, again, and if this is something that you're looking for or thinking about in your community, it's really taking the time to think about who's in your community. If you are an affluent Black person and you want to start a co-op and you have 4 or 5 other affluent Black people, you might be thinking differently than if you are a person who's in middle class or even a person who's in lower class who doesn't have those same, you know, who can't afford those same things, right? But so know who you're targeting, know who you want to be around. For us, your class or your you know household income isn't really an issue, but everybody works differently. So there are married couples and those couples have figured out how to work their finances in one way. Then you have people like myself and Michelle who are single moms, but even inside of those, our financial situations are very different. And so you know, it's really a matter of understanding who it is that you're approaching and then being able to, you know, make adjustments. I don't feel like there's a cookie cutter way that it has to work, but it's more about putting your minds together and thinking about ways that you can make sure that people are not cut out of the process if they're serious, right? And so definitely we're not looking for anybody to take advantage of any situations, but we do want to make sure that we're very, very accessible to our small niche community.
Now, Leslie, it's a couple questions. Leslie said, are you guys nonprofit organization? Is that how it's set up? And I think that she wants to know as far as that the route you go. Now, my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, is if you go through that manner of it, then isn't there like ways they try and regulate you? I don't want to be regulated.
So we are not set. So initially when we started, we actually registered as a nonprofit, but we did not go and get a 501c3 status from the state. So now if we want to get into like a business structure piece, there's a couple things about that. You can register yourself as a community organization. You can set up yourself as an association. And that's if you want some sort of like official designation. The reason why we do have an official designation is because so that we could go in and open up a bank account under the name of the co-op and be able to access that, right? So we could not, we did not want to have a bank account under someone's personal name in order for us to just be completely not recognized as an entity or anything like that. So we initially signed up as a nonprofit organization. And then since we have pretty much moved over into being a community organization with the DBA. So, but that allows for us to, we're still nonprofit because we don't take in profit. So 100% of the money that comes into the co-op directly goes to the expenses of running and operating the co-op. So it's more like a community organization than anything else. And so it's not a situation that's taxed as we have it structured, but we are not like a 501c3 type of organization. But for us to get the grants that we got, there's a couple things. Here in Denver, there is actually a grant that you don't have to be a nonprofit that we can access based off of the work that we do. But the way that we got the one grant that we did get was by a fiscal sponsor. So we did go and find a nonprofit organization who had a mission that fit what we were doing, who was able to take that check. They took a small percentage of it and they sent the rest of it over to us. And they were responsible for taking care of all the financial legality pieces of that.
So what I hear you saying is that if they were to link up with an organization that is like a 501c3 and part of their mission is to do certain things in the community and they fit within that mission, they can definitely get a grant to help your specific thing and then pass those funds on to you. So that's, you know, y'all know how middlemen work. Get y'all middlemen.
Right.
Sometimes you need them.
There are enough of us that are doing, you know, 501c3s. And so that's why I say, you know, we have to utilize the resources that are within our community, right? And
we have them. They raised $160,000 and bail R. Kelly out. We got money. We get a church, 10% tithes every Sunday, Wednesday, Friday, when they had a barbecue. Stop playing.
And that's why I'm saying we don't have to duplicate everything. You know, start by, like, we didn't have to create a 501 because there are enough 501c3s that would support the programming of what we do, that would gladly, for their own purposes, would gladly say, oh, look at this program that we support, you know. So,
and they get a portion of it for receiving the grant in the middle of it. So that I think that's a great thing that got brought up.
Especially when you have struggling 501c3s who don't have the type of programming that they need. If we have the programming that's already operating,
they'll use you,
the money, but you still get some of the money. Plus you can, you know, show that you're working with this program. So we have to be able to think in win-win type of scenarios for our community. This is really what it looks like for us to collaborate and work together, is the idea that we are not out here just for ourselves. This is a community situation. So we did not link up with any white 501c3s. We linked up with Black 501c3s and passed that money through our community.
But you know what? A lot of places do that. We need to learn how business and structures and things work. I mean, that's the same thing as them, you know, places having to give so many jobs or grants to, you know, minority people that run businesses and stuff. You need certain things to be able to benefit and still receive funds from other places. So a lot of times what you're doing, certain organizations need you to be able to fit certain criteria and say that they're doing the things they're doing, and so they can receive things and help you. So we just got to learn, you know, how that works. But I think that the community is more than capable of, you know, taking care of these things. We allocate our money to all kind of other things, and I think that, you know, we could definitely make it happen in any community that wants to. Somebody else wanted to know, what was the name of the group you said you followed in Houston?
And I will drop that in the description.
Also, somebody else asked the Homeschool Co-op. So 2 questions. I'm gonna ask this one real quick, and then I want to respond to the other one. But somebody said in the Homeschool Co-op, is ours just for Black children, or do we let white kids in?
So this is actually
it ain't my co-op, but I feel like I think we should have Black kids.
So our co-op is for Black children. So our co-op is for Black children. Let me give you an official answer to that. If you give me 1 second to just look online. So there are a couple places that we haven't tipped into yet, but I'll tell you where the gray area is. Our co-op is to support. Actually, let me read this to you. Hold on. Wait, look, I said, let me read it to you, and then I didn't even pull up the right page. Hold on, y'all.
Well, you know, I think that too, we can say this, that while you pulling it up, in the public schools, that's geared toward teaching, you know, Black children and minorities to be a certain way and white kids to think a certain way. So what I would definitely say is that in building a co-op as Black people, it should definitely be supportive, and the structure of it should be based towards your people and your history and your culture and your learning and the things you want your children to know. So, I mean, at the end of the day, I would say, no, if it's a co-op in your community and it's about Black children, I mean, that would really be up to you. I mean, if you live in a community where there's a whole lot of white kids, they probably don't want to be in homeschool. They probably in the public school because it suits them just fine.
Well, we have people who have come to ask us. So here's our mission. We exist to create a safe, collaborative learning environment for Black homeschooling families to explore and embrace our heritage and identity across the diaspora by providing educational resources, cultural enrichment, programming, and community. So that's what we're out here doing. Our mission is to support Black homeschooling families. Now, here's where the gray area comes in. The gray area comes in. We have a couple of folks who have, so we at least have one family who is biracial. We do have another family who is not in, but has inquired. And this is a white family who adopted a Black child.
The Black child should be able to come then.
So we all are in agreement that the Black child should be able to come.
But we don't want the mama to stay.
That the white family should be able to come. However,
look, we're going to make a rule. You don't drop your kids off, but you can drop that one off.
So we have talked about that because the other issue is that our parents do stay on site. So even in the aspect of we do have a biracial child in our co-op, and their family is a little bit interesting because the mother actually has a Black child, and then she remarried and she has a Black and white child. Now her husband does not come to the co-op, has only come to the co-op when we have had our end of the year celebration. So he has given us all the space to not be in that environment, right? So he respects what we're doing. Mm-hmm. We did have another situation of a family who ended up not coming along, but came around last year. So again, and this was a double. I don't even know how this whole situation exactly goes down, but it's actually two moms. One is Black and one is white. And the child is biracial, so I'm not quite sure. We didn't get to asking.
This Denver, we see a lot of that now.
Come back around, but she has two moms. One mom is white, one mom is Black. And again, they came to the end of the year celebration, but when they came on the field trip, the Black mom came on the field trip. But the white mom was the one who reached out and said, "Hey, I have a child that we're interested in having her come." But again, the Black mom is the one who came and brought her on the field trip. So,
that's fair. I don't
enough to understand, like we have enough white people who understand that it's not the space for them, but it's a space for their child. And they have tried to figure out how to navigate that.
I mean, I like that everybody gonna run their co-op the same, but I think that the important thing about this conversation is about Black people homeschooling their children and learning to get them out of those systems. And to be honest with you, I mean, I don't know. I'm gonna just say it. I don't care. People think I'm radical any damn way. I just feel like if you are separating yourself from a system of white people, I don't want white people coming then into the system we're trying to build. No, stay your ass over there. I mean, that's how I feel about it. So I don't want
to change the tone in the environment.
I don't want no Black kids in our co-op. I don't want no Spanish kids in there either, unless you got a Black parent.
Right, and we don't have currently. We don't have that.
Your situations are still different than ours.
If we turn someone away, yes, we would turn someone away. We have no problem with turning someone away. I said the gray area kind of comes into play with some of the biracial children and figuring out how their parents fit into the picture, not the child, but how the parents fit into the picture. Because again, our co-op parents stay on site. So because it's not a drop-off situation, that has been the question. But fortunately, it hasn't been a question that we've had to really strongly address. We've had a few inquiries, but not, anything that has made us, have to really sit down and make that those the type of determinations.
So let me ask you a question, Jice. You got your Patreon and all this stuff going on. I mean, would you consider being, I guess is the word, liaison for people who want some information, that want to say, well, look, we're trying to do this as our steps right here and there. Have you thought about people being able to find you as a consultant in the area of like what they don't do to kind of get started if they don't understand it's something they want to do? You're like, girl, don't be putting nothing else on my plate in public.
Right.
Listen, that after the camera goes.
When y'all ready to talk about building your business, mindset, money, intergenerational wealth, hit me up. It is Patreon grind with. Okay?
But you need to throw a level in there for the homeschool co-op too, so they come learn about that.
From the homeschool perspective, what I will say is this. I feel like, because I really try not to step into lanes that I don't feel like I'm an expert. This is why we're here talking with you, is because this is something that we're doing, right? So I did do it. I started a homeschool co-op. That happened. And as a part of the research that I've done, I have found that there are women who have made this their pure focus. And I would say, let's utilize the women who have made this their focus. This is something that I've done. And if you follow me, you'll just learn how my lifestyle is, right? Like, I didn't like corporate America. I left that bitch. I'm up out of there. I do my own thing, right? So I figured that out. I don't like the school system. We left that bitch. We up out of there. We're not doing that. I pull out of systems I don't like, and I try to create community around those pieces, right? So that is something that I have done, but don't necessarily consider myself to be the expert in those areas. So I will drop some links to, look, I better start writing down all the things.
Your moderators on the shout out to Nakia Clark. She the moderator of the year. We're gonna start passing out awards and shit. I need, because she be moderating for you. Look, y'all be doing the job. She wants to know to what is your Patreon again, so she can
Patreon and Grind with Jice. Bam.
Say it again.
Patreon, Grind with Jice. Thank you.
There you go. See, yeah, the moderators be on it. Now, the people who wanted to be moderators, Jice says she does it on her phone and won't let her while she's live, but she'll go back afterwards and look for the people who are asking to be. And then, so when you come next time, you'll have your wrench. So thank you, Nakia, though.
Yes, and definitely you want to come back, because we finna have a conversation for your ass tomorrow.
Look, too, somebody said something earlier I wanted to throw out there about, I didn't forget the question, I held on to it, but they said, don't you have to have a degree to homeschool your children? Because
I saw that,
yeah, teachers in school have degrees. And I want to say that that's a colonized mindset of thinking. First of all, you should be the first teacher of your child. Second of all, those degrees that those people have, your kids can leave school and have a lack of no kind of skills. How many people got high school diplomas but don't have jobs, can't keep a roof over their head, don't know how to pay their bills, don't know how to budget their money, they buying Jordans for they pay their light bill. Like, they really learn no life skills. And so I would also say this too, I'm not the complete teacher in my house. I am a guider. So I want to throw that out there too. And I guide my children in the learn they need. If there's a subject that they really need some help in, that or the programs that they use between online and the curriculums that we have, and all of the things we talked about in the first video, because there are places where when your kids are in homeschool through the public school, they can go to certain sites 1 to 2 times a week if you use their curriculum, and volunteer teachers help them with those subjects. It's not like the public school, they're there for a couple hours. It's your choice if you want to take them. Then you have the co-ops, and then you have the other days of the week. So what I will say is that if there's something my child is struggling with, then guess what? I don't buy Jordans. I take that money and I go get a tutor, a Black one. Right. But I go get them a tutor, you know, so if they need help with something. But at the end of the day, you have gone through school. Do you not have a high school diploma? So they don't require every person to get a college degree. So if you had a high school diploma and you graduated, you don't have enough knowledge to help your children through those basic things. And so I think that comes into not understanding the colonized mindset of thinking you have to be taught like the public schools are taught. I will tell you that I've watched homeschool kids here in Denver, as well as in the co-op that, you know, that we have. These children are very intelligent. They have there are kids I know that have done homeschool co-ops here and have been accepted to 5 different colleges when they were done. I actually see the children in homeschool excel those in the public school and be intelligent as hell and have all kind of accolades. So don't let that make you think you have to be a teacher with a degree. You don't.
And that's because there's a few things about that you said that was really important. Why are kids excelling? And just understanding around the curriculum piece. Kids are excelling because in a homeschool environment, or in an individualized learning environment, you are giving your child time to really understand the fundamentals. Once they understand the fundamentals, a lot of those other concepts that build on top of that, if that foundation is weak, the reason why they struggle is because you cannot teach algebra if you don't get addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. You're not going to understand algebra. So you trying to teach your kid algebra and your kid can't multiply. So once you get your kid where it don't matter if your kid is in 10th grade, if they cannot tell you 9 times 9, then you need to spend time doing that and then allowing them to grasp those concepts, and then they can catch the other concepts much faster and much easier. And so what happens in the school system is they keep pushing our kids along. They don't know where they got.
Most of your kids don't have that, right? Most of them don't.
To teach this, I'm gonna teach it in 3 weeks, whether you got it or you don't got it.
That's the problem in public school. They push your kids along. They had that law, no child left behind, right? And so whether your kid grasp it or not, they pushed them to the next grade. So kids were constantly being pushed to the next grade without ever getting the foundation from 3 grades ago. So they're just kind of going with the motion and they're not understanding anything that they're doing. And then they graduate with a diploma like in Detroit and they're illiterate or they dumb and they don't know nothing, but they got a diploma.
Don't let your kid be good in sports because they will pass them along for sports with the heartbeat. And they don't
pass your kids on in a minute. No, dang well, they don't understand.
So, you know, that's part of why kids are able to move that way. Now, the other thing that happens is that you can also enroll your child while they are in K through 12, you can enroll them in college classes. So if you want them having that AP experience or you want them having that college experience, college is a whole nother conversation. I'm not an advocate for college and I have 2 degrees and I would never send my child down the same route that I went down. But if you are an advocate for college, I'm not saying there's a right or wrong. I'm saying if you're an advocate for college and you want that type of experience or you want to start setting up their transcripts for that, you can also begin doing that. You can have your child dual enroll. You can start putting your kids in college classes as soon as you feel like, or they test and be ready for that. So, you know, you don't have to have it as one way. As your child gets older, because that's a question that comes up a lot is, well, is it okay for high school kids? Absolutely. Just go start sticking them in college courses. Right. Even if you don't want them to go to college, you can still stick them in college courses.
One class. Right.
Let me not say that I don't want my kid to go to college. I don't want that to be the ABC answer. It's not linear like that. So in my house, the answer is not go to high school, get your high school degree and then or diploma and then go to college. The answer is, what is it that you're going to do with your life? And let's start working you towards that. And if college is a part of that, then let's talk about how that
right. That's the same thing in my household, Jice, because I have degrees. And I don't use any of them.
Right.
I don't use any of them, and none of them pay me for all the time that I spent more than what I do doing my own thing, right? And so my children, I gear them towards this. My kids know you don't have to go to college if you don't want to go to college. I prefer that my kids start a business, and that's what they're doing. That's part of their homeschooling. See, you can gear that any way that you want to go, because I'd rather have my children understand business, have a business, make all these mistakes while they're young, like their school projects, and by the time they're in their 20s, they got this thing down, right? While everybody else is waiting to walk across that stage, my child owns their own business and they can employ you. So come on with that degree so we can give you a job.
So actually, what you just hit on something, because there was something that I wanted to touch on earlier and then the conversation kept on rolling. So there was someone who asked, do we, as entrepreneurs, do we include that? So absolutely. So this will kind of touch on the unlearning portion, in my opinion, or in my household with unlearning. So, or unschooling rather. So unschooling is really kind of pulling away from the traditional school model and allowing your child to kind of guide their own learning interests. So there are some pieces for me and unschooling is very broad, right? So people can kind of do it in a variety of ways. And I would say, again, that might be a term we need to drop with like some links to what that looks like, because it's such a broad way. Like there's so many ways that you can unschool your kids. So for me in my house, I have some basic things that my daughter has to understand and has to know. That's reading, that's writing, that's math. Those are like the top 3. You got to be able to read well. You have to be able to write well, and you have to be able to at minimum count your chips. So that's kind of our thing there, right? Now, from there, she gets into a lot of the things that she likes to do and wants to do. So my daughter wants to be a YouTuber. My daughter wants to do art. And she has a little side business. My daughter makes school supplies. So she does like notebooks and pencils and things like that. So as a part of her day, we have the next day that she's going to go down to the marketplace and set up her shop and sell her notebooks. So she knows she has to re-up her inventory. So we have this as a part of her schooling. How much does your inventory cost? How much are you selling? What's your profit margin here? How much how much did you make last time? Let's break this down as to how much you can keep. So that means what she can go out and spend, how much goes into your savings, how much has to get poured back into your business. So all of that is doing math. We're redoing inventory. She's doing her art as a part of that. She's working on things like now she wants to expand because she wants to have her social media account. She just became a teenager. So soon I'm gonna let her open up her social media account so she can promote. She wants to have a logo. So it's like now she's thinking about other areas of her business in order to take her business a little bit further along. And all of that is a part of her schooling. Now, how do I keep track of all of this? what we have to do is begin to associate different things with a learning skill or a skill, basically. So when I track down each day what she's done, if she was creating inventory, I'm tracking down all the things that she's doing as a part of attaching that to a learning outcome. So she's learning about math, she's learning about art. Those are kind of the easy ones, but she's also learning about management. So she's learning management skills. She is learning entrepreneurial skills, entrepreneurial thinking, right? So I am taking things that she's doing and then I'm attaching that to a certain type of learning outcome. And that helps me think about what she's actually learning through the day. So I don't have it broken down like she's doing history and science and social studies and civics. Like we don't have it broken down like that. If we have a conversation around the bullshit that 45 is doing, that's a civics conversation. If we're having a conversation around ADOS, that's a civics conversation. That's a history conversation.
They're not going to talk about that in public school though with your kids.
Right. But this is how, because this is, so from a curriculum standpoint, again, if you're just starting out, we got to decolonize the way we think.
Yes.
Got to decolonize the way we think. But what happens is you start thinking, well, is my child learning history? Is my child learning science? Is my child learning math? Is my child, so you're thinking subjects the way that you learn in school. Unschooling says that learning takes place all over the place. So if I'm listening to Trevor Noah and Trevor Noah is over here clowning on 45 and all his bullshit and fuckery, there is a whole plethora of information that is up inside of that small 5-minute clip that we just laughed about. So we could talk about what precedents they have for holding, can a president be accused of a crime, right? There are people right now, you have Giuliani, whatever the fuck his name is, Giuliani saying the president cannot commit a crime. So you have to impeach him in order to accuse him of a crime. That's a civics conversation. Let's go back in history and let's take a look at how this has worked, and is there precedence for accusing a sitting president of a crime, right?
Go ahead. You want to?
No, I'm just saying we just have to think about it in a different way.
Right. In unschooling, what I would say in that is that instead of creating situations to try and teach your child a topic, I would say you take the things that you should learn and they're all around you in life and use those subjects to teach your children, as Jice was just saying. Like right now, because there is so much going on politically and talking to my children or whatever, as far as politics goes, how many kids are in school at the ages that, my children are right now, and they can learn about gerrymandering, the electoral votes, how presidents get elected. So many of us don't know how politics works, but guess what? That's real life. They'll teach you about that in school, but they don't teach you what you really need to know. So that's a lesson. Even like I say in the math with my children, they go to the grocery store. That's math. If I'm paying my bills, sometimes for their assignment, I get them all the bills. Here they go. I give them my debit card. I tell them to call the phone numbers. We sit there. You know why? Because they need to know how to use the debit card. They need to know how to pay some bills, right? They need to open up a bank account. Those are all math learning things. And even my children are starting a business as well. One lady on here made a comment that said that I think her daughter was selling stuff online, and that after she watched my video from 5 months ago, she's been doing much better. So I'm glad that y'all did. I'm going to do another video about that. The one I did was on Fly Nubian Queen, but I've actually turned that business over to my children. And so part of that is that the inventory is coming in for them. Now they got to take the pictures. They have to do all of the inventory. They have to package up the stuff. They have to keep track of the sales. They have to print off the postage, and they can put it in the car, and I'll drive them to the post office. I might make them catch a lift, but it's all on them. And they are learning all of those things. And that's their project. That's their yearly project. They have a yearly project. And this year, it is to start that business, and they have to do it together. But then they're also going to be monetizing with YouTube, because you know what they're going to do? Because I have looked all over YouTube, and there are not any Black people that are doing videos venturing into buying wholesale and then reselling it online, Amazon, eBay. Nobody Black is venturing into that, but you can watch white folks everywhere. They get their packages, they unbox them, they tell you what it costs, they show you what's in there, they come back later and tell you what they made, how they sold it, when they got their first check. So guess what? My kids are gonna do the same thing. And not only are they young doing it, they're Black children doing it. So that's their project. They're gonna run this business, and they're going to put the information as they go along and share their journey on YouTube for anybody else, hoping that other young Black children and other Black people will see someone Black doing it and saying, well, if they can do it, then I can do it too. So, you know, that's all of that unlearning. I want to throw this out there too about people who go to work, that unschooling, that I wanted to put in there, unschooling. You don't have to teach your kids Monday through Friday. Like I said in the beginning, from 8 to 4 in the afternoon. I want y'all to know there are times I wake up on a Wednesday and I don't feel like doing nothing. They don't either. We get in the car and we go to Dave & Buster's while everybody else is at school. But you know what? Maybe Saturday, we doing some work, because we use opportunities as they arise to learn. And guess what? And maybe we had appointments this morning, or we had something else to do. So now we come home, and after we have dinner, we sit down and we do an hour or two of some work. You don't have to always do it in the same schedule. So I hope that will help some parents out there understand that you do not have to sit your kids down at a table with 5, 7 subjects and say, do one after the other every single day. And at 4, you're done Monday through Friday. Right. I mean, if I want to take a 3-week vacation with my kids, I could do that. And guess what? When everybody else is getting out in the summertime, during the summer, there are times we still do work. We still learn, as long as they get them hours in all year round. So it's very flexible, and it's however you want to get it done. So let's say you work in the daytime. Now, I'm not saying if you got little babies, don't be letting them run around at home alone. But right, you can stop buying all them school uniforms, and maybe you can pay somebody to babysit your children in the daytime while you're at work. But let's say you have older children, teenagers, maybe you work at night and they're at home alone by themselves anyway. How many people have latchkey children who come home 12, 13, 14, you're not home anyway after work, and they're waiting for you to get home. So my question is that if you have responsible children and they're old enough to be at home, why can't you go to work and leave them some instructions? And then when you come home, check their work, and maybe there's some things they need some help with you. And guess what? Y'all can work on that after you get home from school. You can work on some of those things with them on the weekend. So stop telling yourself, just because I have a job and I go to work, I can't teach my kids at home because they need to go off to school while I'm at work. If they're old enough to stay home or come home alone and you're not there, then they're old enough to be at home. And then they're old by law. And then they're old enough for them to do some work. And then for you to come home, there's nothing that says, other than white colonization public schools, that you cannot do work with your children at 7 o'clock at night. Matter of fact, they do that. They call that shit homework. Everything my kids do is homework. That's a joke in this house. Go do your homework, because you at home doing work. So, I mean, we just have to begin to think a little different in the way that we approach it. And you can make it very possible for your children to be homeschooled if you realize you do not have to be a teacher just over them. You do not have to know every subject. You do not have to create a curriculum on your own. In the first video, we gave all of those different ways you can come up with curriculums. If you understand that you don't have to take the approach of the white school system, and you can uncolonize your mind in the way that they teach our children, then you can look at teaching your children in a whole nother way. So I just wanted to throw that out there with the unschooling and the hours and the different days that you can teach your children, because I'm sure there are parents out there right now saying, well, I go to work from 9 to 5. I can't teach my kids, but your kid get out of school at 2:15 and they don't see you till 6 o'clock anyway, and they 15 years old. Guess what? When you leave, tell them do some damn chores, get them some assignments, and when you get home, you check that stuff. Point blank, period, right? So there is a way around that, right? And then if you have homeschool co-ops and different things like that work. So, you know, there's a lot of options, but we have to be willing to look into them. I would tell you, I started homeschooling thinking that exact way, and it did not work well for my family. And now it does. The way that my children learn, with the unschooling, my children don't have a set schedule. They wake up, they have subjects they have to learn in the week. And I say, well, what you want to learn today? And then I ask them, well, how do we plan on you learning this? Well, I have part of my curriculum. My daughter has to write. She likes to sing. So part of her writing assignment, I'm going to do my writing today. So what you going to do? I'm going to write a song. Okay, so go write a song. And then when you're done, I need to see your song. And then you got to sing it to me. And then, you know, if you do a good enough job, I'll take you in the studio. Let's put it on track, right? And so then that makes her excited. And she's learning how to write at the same time, that she's doing something that's enjoyable to her. So, you know, we just have to, we learn as we go. And we can understand that there are a lot of ways to approach this instead of staying stuck in that one mindset. I did want to say one more thing. Scorpio 16 said that she is a certified educator, but she's working on getting away from the public school system as her primary income. She has a desire to work with kids, but I need to get a business off the ground. So I want to say to her, go to Jice's Patreon, because they're very affordable levels, but she will teach you all of that. Help, you know, figure out what you want to do, from branding to how you get your federal ID number, down to the nitty gritty, to the bolts. And then that's what Jice does. That's what she does. She just got honored.
Yeah, look, that was my next question. She said, Meechee, do you offer business coaching? I was like, do you offer business coaching?
It's Jice. That's Jice. I offer I feel like, I don't know, some people call it hatred. I just be ready to fight, you know, white supremacy, not everybody, but, you know, Jice help you with your business. I help you, like, you know, throw a cocktail through the white people business. Don't need to be in our neighborhood. So, I'm the other side, no.
Let me throw that out there.
So
BBIprofessional.com. That's one, BBIprofessional.com. And you can also go to Patreon Grind with Jice. So I do have one-on-one coaching business as well as a group coaching program. And then, of course, I can help with some individual coaching things along that, you know, individual coaching questions and things like that as well. So BBIprofessional.com and Patreon Grind with Jice.
And I want to say, because she don't be liking to toot her own horn, and she don't like when other people do it anyway, but toot, toot. We was just the other night, this is why we didn't do this on Thursday, because she was honored as 40 under 40 here, 40 people under 40 who are doing great in their business and the things that they are doing in the community. She was one of 2 Black people, the only Black woman honored this year for that. So Jice know what she's doing. She doing the damn thing. And honestly, the services she offered, the prices, she could charge much more, but we know we ain't trying to break Black folks' pocket. We want y'all to get in some businesses, have them succeed, and not be a sole proprietor. We want you to have employees. We want you to grow. We want you to be able to sit at home like Mr. Walmart and be like, I don't do nothing but collect the check. You understand what I'm saying? So y'all go over to Patreon because I stand in what Jice does, and I will tell you that she does what she does well, and it's an affordable price. So go over there to Patreon and get some of that learning in them classes and get that business started. Let's not keep talking about it. Let's just, you know what? Let's make the steps one step at a time. Start with a small one, and before you know it, you'll be like, I can't believe I got a business. It'll be
right.
So
well, I appreciate that shout out, sis, because everybody at my table. So Meechee was at the table with me. She came out to support me, and a few of my other really good friends came out to support me, and they all jumped on me because they was like, you don't never say nothing about yourself. And I don't, and it's not even on purpose. It's just because the work is just so much bigger than me, y'all. Like, my vision is big, and my vision really doesn't even include me. But what it does include is having an empowered economic base in the Black community. And I think that is the most important thing. And to bring it back around to the homeschool conversation, it starts with our children being empowered. And so that's why this was important. That's why I had to take my kids out of the school system. It wasn't a place of empowerment. And so, you know, I feel like we could literally talk about this all day because there's so many aspects to it, and there's so many different approaches. We promised you a lot of links. And so give me a minute to start dropping those links inside of the description. So I don't think this came out with a description, but I'm going to update this video. It will have a description here shortly, and that description will have quite a many of links in it and places that you can follow and people that you can follow. Again, with me just wanting to emphasize, you know, even as a part of the work that I do, is emphasizing the experts where the experts are. I'm not a jack of all trades. I'm an expert in mindset. And my passion is for how we build our businesses and build intergenerational wealth within the Black community. Our children are an integral part of that conversation. Mm-hmm. And it starts with being able to reclaim their education, not reclaim, really claim it, because we ain't really had control over their education before, but we are becoming empowered as parents to have control over our children's education and teach them the things that they need to learn in order to set them up to be successful. One of the things that I like to highlight is the fact that when we talk about Black wealth, we need to understand that we are now starting to see the most amount of Black wealth being built, and it's being lost in the second generation. And what that means is that if you're a person who's out here working your ass off like I am, working your ass off like Meechee is, we're building something bigger for our children. With what the statistics are telling us right now is that our children will most likely lose our wealth. So that means that there's something we are not teaching our children in order for it to make it to the 3rd, 4th, 7th generation down. Mm-hmm. So we have to do a better job as parents, one, learning ourselves. And so I already spoke to that. We're in a place of having to teach ourselves and decolonize ourselves and learn these things ourselves, but turn right back around and teach it to our children. And our children watching us go through the learning process is important. One of the things that hurts me about Black parents is that we don't ever want our children to know how much we don't know. And so we push off a lot of their questions, like, don't worry about that, or go ask your teacher, or, you know, why are you worried about grown folks' business? Like, no, invite them into the conversation. When I don't know something, that is an opportunity for my daughter to watch me learn it and then come back and say, okay, well, you asked me this and I didn't know, so now I know. And that is a part of teaching her that when you don't know something, that's okay. We struggle without having a growth mindset. So we are constantly in this place of not wanting to look or feel stupid, not just in front of our kids, but in front of our peers and even sometimes to ourselves. But it's never about looking or feeling stupid. It's always about understanding that we have more to learn and more to grow. And so if you don't know something, let your child see you go through that process of learning it, because that for them shows them that you're not just pointing the finger at them and telling them what they need to do, but that you're a living example of what it looks like for you to continue the learning process for your entire life. I tell my daughter, I didn't just go and get the college degree and then I shut my brain off. I am a lifetime learner. I learn something new every single day. They need to see that in reality.
Yeah, that's true. And I guess that goes back to the question the guy said, that do you have to have a degree to, teach your kids? No, you the parents, you their first teacher. You better teach your kids more than the public school do. And that's the problem. We think everybody else wants to teach our kids. That's why they're running around here crazy, because you ain't teaching them. You letting everybody else teach them something. Music is teaching them. Media is teaching them. We got TV teaching girls how to be women, and it ain't the greatest portrayal of us. We're letting rap music and dumb stuff teach our boys what it means to be a man, and it's this thug, and it's the furthest thing from the damn truth. That's the problem. We let everybody else teach our children but us. We should be their first learner, and we should be their biggest learner throughout their life, because as you grow in wisdom and you get older, you should constantly pass things down to your children. Forget a school. If you old and you've been married, when they get married, you should be able to teach them and offer them advice, because you step places that they haven't. Parents are the ultimate teachers of their children, and if we don't understand that, I know that maybe that's part of the problem. We got to stop letting everybody else teach our children 90% of what they know, and then the 10% is, I went to work, I pay the bills around here, just do it because I said so and don't ask me nothing. We got to stop that mindset of thinking that this school and this society could never teach my child anything better or more than I would teach them, because they teach them lies. They teach them falsehood. They don't teach them who they are. They teach them insecurities. And so for me, I love my children. So I know that there's nobody that is going to teach my children better about who they are, what they should know, and want to see them succeed more than I do.
Absolutely.
So shout out to Mr. Bing in the house. I want to say what's up to him. Mr. Bing be everywhere. I see you. And shout out to Chris Morgan. He said that his children were homeschooled. Shout out to you. I love to see that, right? So shout out to you and them homeschool babies.
Absolutely. So I think we're about ready to wrap this up. Listen, y'all, definitely go back and listen to the replay. I appreciate y'all subscribing. Thank you for sharing. And, like I said, you can continue to drop your questions. I've gone back through the other conversation and really tried to answer as many questions as I could. If you drop more questions, if you have questions, I'll be sure to answer. Michelle could do the same thing. And, I'm excited about our conversation for tomorrow. That's where
I was just finna go. So let's give a prelude. So tomorrow we're gonna come together and talk, and hopefully we'll have a couple more guests, hopefully a gentleman as well. But we're actually gonna be talking about toxic femininity. And I think that a lot of times in our communities, it's great to have conversations. And it's one thing to hear the women be like, men do this and men do that. But it's different when you hear the men say, yo, brothers, we do some shit sometime and we got to get it together, right? Same thing with the women. I think that it is more effective when women are able to hold other women in the community accountable by speaking up to the things that we are doing that's not so great. What is homegirl name? Amanda Seals or whatever, is that her name? All right, lying on Black men and taking it back. There are women who play their children as pawns and won't let their fathers see them. There are women who see their children as paychecks. There are women who, are out here saying we want equality, but then as soon as something goes to the left, they use their privilege. I'm not sure how that works. As Black people, we've never had that privilege, do we? Jice, do we get to scream, we want equality, and then be like, but let me use my privilege, right? Women start crying, I'm a girl, you should just believe me. Women are predators, women lie, women be full of shit, and this is coming from women. And so I'm not saying all women do this, but the truth of the matter is we're gonna stop sitting around acting like women don't do these things and that they don't need to be checked or held accountable. And I'm really tired. And we're using the title toxic femininity because of the fact that they call men, the masculine femininity. A toxic toxic masculinity, right? I get tired of that word as well, but we just gonna give them the counter to that because I don't think that there's anything wrong with men being masculine. I'm tired of making things that men should do be toxic, and then everything that women do is never toxic. So we gonna set the record straight on tomorrow. Hopefully we will have a gentleman on here who's going to speak to some of his experiences, and another woman. So I don't know what everybody's stance is, but you know, my stance is, you know, we just gonna be honest. We ain't all soft little innocent wallflowers, y'all. Stop that.
That's how we do. So again, you know, I just want to thank everybody. Like I said, y'all gonna have to give me a minute because we promised y'all a shit ton of links. All right, so I got to go and pull them jokers together. But I just want to thank everybody. Make sure you go back and check the links. Especially if you have questions, make sure you go back and ask your questions. Like I said, I will be going back in to try and answer as many as possible. And someone said, what time tomorrow? So we are looking at
what's tomorrow?
6 o'clock Colorado time. So 8 o'clock Eastern. 8 o'clock Eastern.
6 o'clock.
Yes, I am in Colorado. Oh my God, Charles Howard. Did you really just jump on here and do that? It's one of my Army buddies, y'all. What's up, Charles?
Michiko.
Right. He went all the way. Look, I told y'all that I have Japanese in me. And so my middle name is Michiko. And everyone in the military calls me Michiko. He jumped way on and took it back. Okay. I've been out.
Girl, I know you.
So we'll be on about 8 o'clock Eastern. That's the plan. You know, sometime with us entrepreneurial mamas, single mamas,
it might end up being like 8:22. But we're gonna be here. We're gonna be
here though.
I thank everybody for tuning in. I want to thank y'all personally for supporting my girl Jice. I thank you for all of you that came over here from the links that I've shared or on my page. Thank you for all of the support and you know, coming to have this conversation with us for those of you that were interested in the knowledge. So shout out to y'all, to all of y'all for the support and viewing. Thank you for liking and sharing. Subscribe if you have not, like if you have not, share it if you haven't, and hit the notification bell so you can get your notification whenever Jice is live. You guys enjoy the rest of your day. I'm going to be going live in a minute on my page. I got some stuff I got to say. But other than that, we'll be back here tomorrow, you guys, 8:30-ish Eastern. Tomorrow we'll see you guys to have that conversation we mentioned. So you guys enjoy your weekend, and Jice, take it out one more time. Tell them where they can follow you and you know everybody can find you.
You're on my page right now, so definitely hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, and then if you want to hit us up on some websites, it's bbiprofessional.com, and then you can also go to Patreon, Grind with Jice. So that's how you can reach me. Very accessible. You can also follow me on Instagram and on Facebook at Jice Johnson.
All right. Well,
all right, y'all.
Bye.